Welcome to the Statement Makers podcast, where we hear from everyday people like you and me who have overcome the odds and are doing extraordinary things to make their communities and the world a better place to live. We hope you enjoy our conversation, get inspired, and become a statement maker. Hi, friends, and welcome to a new episode. Our guest today is truly a statement maker in her community, and her name is Nina Yan. Nina gave up stilettos and suits for flip-flops and trousers to follow her calling. She started her career in the area of business development for large chain hotels and resorts and worked in five-star hotels like the Grand Hyatt in Hawaii and the Shangri-La Hotel in Shanghai. But then she felt a calling and moved to Guatemala for 2.5 years to do mission work. During her time as a volunteer and missionary, she realized her passion was to serve those who are the most vulnerable. So during this time, she earned her master's in nonprofit management from the University of Central Florida. Today, Nina is the president and CEO of the Christian Sharing Center, an organization that for the past 33 years has helped those less fortunate to meet their basic needs while also fighting hunger and homelessness for the community. Nina, thank you for being our guest today.
I am very honored that, Cameron, you invited me to join your podcast and sharing the work that we are doing at the Sharing Center. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
You're so welcome. It's a pleasure having you. Your story is very interesting because you were a corporate professional who used to wine and dine with the corporate elite in the hotel industry, but then decided to attend a missionary trip in Guatemala that changed your life. Why did you make that decision?
I think it wasn't one turning point or one incident that happened. It was a culmination of, as I worked through my corporate career and just building stronger in my own faith, things just sort of morphed. And over the probably 2 year span, I was doing 1 week long mission trips like many of us have done in the past. And I knew that I always felt fulfilled. And when I'm flying back to Orlando, I never wanted to leave wherever I was, whether it's um, Jamaica 1 year or Guatemala or Honduras and so forth. And so I knew from those experiences, I enjoy being a missionary. I enjoy giving back and serving others. And it really wasn't until 2009, 2010 timeframe. I had a really great job at the time. I was with Florida Hospital, now Advent Health, and I was the business development director for a new surgical training center we were building. And Advent Health being a really great company to work for. And we also had mission trips at a sister hospital in Tegucigalpa. And so I was traveling there as well, in addition to Jamaica. My church has a partner church in Jamaica. So those were the two places that I went more consistently. And just over that 1 year period when I had a great job, I was very engaged with the community. I was serving on 2 separate nonprofit boards. I was one of the leader in my church. I was ushering constantly. I was doing hospitality volunteer work. And it should be a time that I thought, okay, all the stars are lined up. My life, it should be perfect. And though I wasn't unhappy, I just didn't feel like I was fulfilled. And probably over the span of several months, every morning I woke up and I felt like there was still a hole in my heart and I couldn't figure out why. And so I do what I normally do when I can't figure things out. I call my pastor. His name is Pastor Bill Barnes. And I said, Bill, can you have coffee with me? And so we usually do 7:30 morning coffee appointments. And just over coffee, I share with him all the things that I'm sharing with the listeners now and say, Bill, I think I'm going crazy. I have a great job. I have a great dog. I have a beautiful house. I'm engaged in a community. I'm a business leader. I volunteer all of my free time and financial resources. Why do I still feel like there's a hole in my heart? And so he told me basically I was being led to make a career change and to serve in whether it's in our own community or in a developing country, but I was being called to serve. And at first I thought, well, what does that look like? Well, you got to quit your job and you got to go to training and then you move to a different country. And so I'm like, Bill, I have a house, a mortgage, I have a dog that I just, it was a puppy back then. Like I have responsibilities to take care of my dog and my house. And so eventually we worked through all that. And I did go through the United Methodist volunteer and mission training. And then it came time to wait for an assignment, and that day never came. So I took matters into my own hands and I started doing research and see what country had United Methodist missionary sites. And at the time, I had a girlfriend that was also serving in mission in Guatemala. And so I went and visited with her, and that's how I ended up living in Guatemala. And so it was supposed to be a 1-year assignment. So.
And you were there, you basically you did 1 year and then you came back and then said, I think I'm going to go back. Or and your mom noticed there was a change in you. What is it that she saw that was different about you? And why did you decide to go back for another year and a half?
So that's a great question. Towards the end of my first year, I came back to visit my parents here in Orlando, and we went to a Chinese grocery store. So I had a shopping cart, and my mom had a separate shopping cart, and I was buying all these like dry shrimp and dry peppers and canned food and all this stuff. And she goes, your 1-year assignment is almost up. Are you sure you're going to be able to eat all this food that you're taking back? And I said, well, Mom, that's a really good question because that's why I came back to talk to you and Dad. And so a year ago, when I decided to leave my corporate job and take up a post in Guatemala with zero pay, it was met with a lot of resistance from my parents because even though our whole entire family are Christians, she felt that a single lady should be looking to get married and settle down and do the family thing, and moving to a third world country was not the appropriate thing for a single Chinese lady to do. So at the grocery store, I'm telling my mom, I'm thinking about staying a second year. I feel like my work is not done yet. And so I was trying to tell her. And meanwhile, I was gearing myself up to go to battle again with my mom because I knew she was going to object to it. And so after I told her that I was thinking about staying a second year, and she goes, okay. And then she walks away. And I was just standing in the middle of the grocery store, and I'm thinking, what just happened? Like she just agreed readily for me to stay a second year, which is polar opposite of the first year. So fast forward 2 days later, she's driving me back to the airport. I was returning back to Guatemala. And I said, Mom, while I'm very grateful that I have you and Dad's blessing this time, I was really surprised that you agreed so readily. And I said, what changed? And she goes, you've changed. And I said, what do you mean? And she said that before you went to Guatemala, you used to buy very expensive shoes and designer shoes without a blink of an eye or even looking at a price tag. And when we were at the Outlet Mall and we were at, I think, Banana Republic, because I remember like it was yesterday, you were trying on a pair of flip-flop. And so when you're in mission, a lot of the showers are outdoor showers with electrical heating units with exposed electrical wires, and you're standing in a puddle of water. So you always have to wear rubber sole shoes while you're taking showers so you don't get electrocuted while you're turning on and off the water. So you're buying flip-flop. And there was a pair of red ones, and then there was a pair of orange color ones. Then I tried on the red one, then I tried on the orange one, and I was going back and forth because I loved both colors, but I couldn't decide which one I wanted to buy. And they were on sale, Outlet Mall, and then another 50% off, and they were $7 a pair. So for the 2 pairs, it was $14. And I was taking so much time, my mom was like, just buy both, and I'll pay for them. Because I'm 14 $1,000, how many families would that feed in Guatemala for, a family of 6? And so I didn't want to buy the flip-flops. And she's like, when she was telling me driving back to the airport, she said, you used to buy $300, $400, $500 shoes without even looking at the price tag. And this time you wouldn't even buy a $7 pair of flip-flop. And so she said, your priorities with how you spend your money have changed. I notice you are a lot more patient with your father when you're speaking with your father. And you FaceTime me when you're trying to learn a recipe. In Guatemala, I would put up my iPad and I would have my mom walk me through one of my favorite dishes that she used to make for me. And she will walk me through how to make these Chinese dishes. And she said, all you knew how to do pre-Guatemala was to make restaurant reservations. That's all you knew. And while you were living there, you actually were trying to learn how to cook and with an iPad and everything. And so she said, your priorities on money have changed, your faith have changed, your patience with your father and with just my parents in general have changed. And so she said, you know what, if Guatemala can make that change onto you in personal growth in just 1 year, you should stay a second year.
Well, so you shared, Nina, so much that you learned, the patience, really your perspective on money. What would you say was your biggest lesson that you had while you were in Guatemala?
There was this family, and I forgot the parents' names, but I remember the little boy and the little girl's name. It was Oscar and Isabella. And we were up in the high mountains of Guatemala in this place called Quetzaltenango. So it's the land of the Quetzal bird, which is the national bird of Guatemala. So it was kind of like highland, and we were with a team building stoves. And so in the very remote villages in Guatemala, most families are still cooking with on dirt earth with wood logs, and it's open fire and open flame in a small house, if you can call it that even. And a lot of the children were either having emphysema problem because they're inhaling the smoke because the food is being cooked indoors and there's a lot of smoke, or they were getting third-degree burns because the parents would be cooking and then if they turn their back, the children were running around in the house and run right into the fire or the wood logs. And so it was just very dangerous for them to cook with open logs and fire. So one of our projects was to build stoves with bricks and with mortar and la plancha, which is the metallic piece on the top. And then instead of having just one cooktop, most of the cooktop would have about 5 areas, so they can be boiling water and making beans in one pot, and then they can be boiling water and making rice in the other pot. And so it would take the housewives a lot less time to make their meal, as well as a lot safer for the children, and then also cause less lung problems and breathing problems. And so one day we were in one of the families, and we were walking up with all of us carrying different parts of the stove because of how remote the village was, and the truck carrying all the missionaries couldn't get to the house. And so I recall, like, some of us were carrying bricks, some of us were carrying stucco cement blocks, some of us were carrying the cooktop. And so all of us were carrying different parts of the stove, walking through the cornfield, and we finally got to the house. And when we walked up, Oscar and Isabella were playing with this little ball and just, throwing back and forth. And at first I didn't really pay attention to what they were playing with. It just looked like a little ball. And then we started setting up and started mixing the mortar and started the project of building the stove. And during our lunch break, I went over to play with Isabella and Oscar with the ball, and I realized when they threw it to me and I caught it with my bare hands, it was really hard. It wasn't like a Nerf ball or anything that I thought it was. So I looked at it, and it was this little, the seed of an avocado. So it was a bit of an avocado that they were using as a ball to throw back and forth. And they were so joyous and content. And imagine you're in the highlands of Guatemala, in this remote country place that you have to walk through the cornfields to get to. The families are extremely impoverished. Both Isabella and Oscar were dirty from head to toe with no shoes on. And they were so happy throwing around this pit of an avocado plant. And in contrast to, I don't have any children of my own, but my sister and my brothers, and I have lots of nephews and nieces. And growing up, they needed the latest iPad or the latest PlayStation or the latest iPhone. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, life can be so simple, and something as little as the pit of an avocado can bring so much joy to these two children. And I think I learned was, you know what, material things are just things you can't take with you, but it's a matter of finding joy even in the simplest things in life.
Yes. We take so many things for granted. And I think that we're in a society that we consume so much, and social media doesn't help either. We just see the ability to purchase and buy and have. And at the end of the day, none of those things really bring us happiness, like really spending time with our families or our friends. And I think that during this time of COVID-19, we I know for sure I am kind of going back to the basics and thinking, does this device or does this piece of whatever material good, does it actually help me, make me happier? And the answer has been no.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Karen, because we need to be content with what we have, because on a daily basis, I see so many people without the basic necessities, which in my world, we call the five basic necessities: food, shelter, healthcare, childcare, and transportation.
Right. Well, and I'd like to take a moment to talk about that, the fact that you came back from Guatemala and then you decided to return to Central Florida to work for a nonprofit organization, and you're now the CEO of the Christian Sharing Center. So tell us more about what the Christian Sharing Center is. What kind of work do you guys do?
Yes, the Christian Sharing Center was founded 34 years ago with the help of our founder and 16 local churches. Our mission is all about providing the essential resources to those in need while ensuring dignity, reflecting Christian generosity, and sharing God's love. And so, what that looks like is, if you are a housed client, meaning you do have a roof over your head, then you come to our Family in Crisis program. And in that program or in that department, you can seek financial services. And we also, in that department, manage the largest free food pantry in Seminole County. So 5 days a week, if you are family that is working hard but barely making enough money, especially towards month end, to meet your financial obligations, you may run out of money to buy food. So you can come to our pantry, and we'll give you free grocery. In that department, we also have clothing vouchers. So again, if you're struggling with even putting food on the table, you're not going to have money to buy new clothing for your kids or even for yourself. Also, in the same department, we have a Bless Our Souls shoe program. Souls as in SOLES. So 3 times a year, families that are in our clientele base can come and have shoe cards that we purchase from a donation, and people donating their funds to us. And we partner with Carnival shoe stores. We get discounts if we buy the shoe cards in volume. And so now, getting ready for back to school in August, we just purchased 600 shoe cards to go back to families so that they can buy new shoes for their children going back to school. So that's all under Family in Crisis. And then our second program serves the homeless population in the Oasis. And so if you are homeless, regardless of where you slept the night before, anywhere in the Tri-County or 5-county area, if you can get to the sharing center, then you'll have a place to have a hot meal, take a shower. If you're out of clean clothing, we do your laundry for you, and it's operated by our volunteer. So while you enjoying a hot breakfast, waiting for your turn to take a shower, our volunteer is washing, drying, and folding your laundry for you. And pre-coronavirus, we had 2 volunteer hairdresser, barber that would come and give our homeless clients either a shave of their beard or shave their head or get a haircut. And so basically, if you're homeless, you can come, get cleaned up, get breakfast, get a haircut, get your laundry done, and then before you leave, we'll give you a sandwich or a salad or a sup or something for your lunch. And basically, your first 2 meals of the day is taken care of. But the most important thing is just through the interaction with our case manager, we're trying to bring a little bit of dignity back to our homeless population's lives and basically meeting our homeless clients where they are in their life today.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nina, it's kind of hard to believe, but some people may not believe that in the United States of America, there are people who go to bed hungry every day or they don't have a place to sleep. We think those things only happen in developing countries, not in the US. Why is it important to fight homelessness and hunger in this country?
Well, from my personal belief, and whether you are a Christian or a non-Christian, it's just basic human dignity to serve others that are in need. And there's a gazillion Bible verses that basically talks about either hunger or homelessness or serving those that are poor. And basically, one of the verses that talks about homelessness and poverty is from Proverbs 14, and it talks about whoever oppresses a poor man insults his maker, but he who is generous to the needy honors him. And so by serving others that are living in poverty, we're actually honoring our Lord. But just beyond that, um, so many Bible verses talks about if you are just the type of Christian that goes to worship on a Sunday and you don't live your faith and you don't show through your action, we're really not being true Christians. And we need to live our faith through our action and not through our words. And so from a Christian perspective, this is just the basic things we have to do. But if you're a listener that owns a business or pay taxes, which I hope is all of us, there's a really great report that the governor's office does, I want to say every 2 years, but I know the latest report I read was published in 2019. And it's all about homelessness in America, and this one specifically in the state of Florida. And what they did was they took 107 homeless individuals and did a study. For these 107 people, they asked, about incarceration or ending up in emergency room or other questions. And they calculated that the economic impact of leaving these 107 homeless individuals on the street in 1 year's time, it cost us $3.3 million as taxpayers. So that's about $31,000 per person per year if we leave them on the street. If you take these 107 people, you put them in housing, permanent supportive housing, and then you provide the wraparound services, whether they need mental health counseling, whether they need job coaching, whether they just need someone to come in and help them spend the day because they're living on disability, and whatever it is that they need, you provide that wraparound services. It actually only costs about $10,000 per person per year, about a third of the cost if we leave them on the street homelessness. And so we as taxpayers really should want to help these homeless people get off the street because we pay less of our taxes going towards supporting the homeless people. So not only they get a better quality of life by having permanent supportive housing, but we as a society, we're paying less taxes to support these homeless individuals if we just keep them staying on the street. And if you have ever had any friends or relatives that's going through COVID-19 and all of a sudden they find themselves being evicted, it could happen to any of us with our friends or even families that could potentially become homeless. And why wouldn't you want to help your friends or family? Just like why wouldn't you want to help a stranger who's on the street? And so whether it's from a Christian perspective, a human dignity perspective, or a financial perspective, it just makes sense to help the homeless.
Right. Just like you said, it's a moral issue and even a business issue, right? It really does make sense. Nina, I have visited the Christian Sharing Center in the past. You gave me a wonderful tour once, and I was just so impressed by all the individuals that donate their time and their talent. And I kept thinking, nonprofits rely on the generosity of not just funds, but also time of volunteers to help carry out the mission. Sometimes we think that an hour or two of our time won't really make a difference, but that's not the case. Please tell us, why are volunteers so critical to carrying out the missions of nonprofit organizations?
I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head. I'm thinking about 46,000 volunteer hours were donated by our faithful volunteer team last year. And financially, if I was to hire every one of those positions and staff them, it would cost the agency additional $1.3 million that we have to raise through fundraising. And so volunteer team not only makes sense in the sense of keeping our admin costs down, but it also allows our community of volunteers to fill a gap in their lives. And so many of my volunteers that are here 2, maybe even 3 times a week are retired executives. And we're talking someone who used to be a CFO at AAA, or someone who used to lead a major company, someone who was a chief editor at the Sentinel. And so once they retire and they want to find something meaningful to devote their free time to, they somehow find their way to the sharing center. And we are so blessed by so many awesome people. And if the people that are listening that are my volunteers, they'll know who they are. Some of our volunteers not only are retired corporate executives, but we also have clients that want to pay it forward. And an example would be one of our homeless individual. Let's just call him Jose, because in the confidentiality purposes, I won't give his real name. But Jose used to be a client of the Oasis when he was homeless about 2 years ago. And our awesome manager at the Oasis ended up working with him and help him apply for his Social Security, and then also ended up helping him find a room from a house to rent from. And so he went from homelessness, using our shower facility, come and get his meals here at the Oasis, to become stably housed and living on his Social Security, which he has more than enough money, uses his bike now to get to the sharing center. And 2 days a week, he comes and cleans the shower inside Oasis, where he used to take showers at. So he's paying it forward because he used to once receive the benefits of the Oasis. And that is just awesome, because Jose loves coming to volunteer. He talks to our homeless individuals and friends and people that come and say, hey, there is life beyond homelessness. I was once homeless 2 years ago, just like you. So if you want to work towards having a permanent supportive housing, or if you want to work towards getting a job, for the younger people that are not living on Social Security yet, we can help them find a job, and we can help them get more training. We can help them find housing, even if it means just renting a room from somebody else's home. So, here is Jose paying it forward in addition to our other loyal volunteer team.
Again, we think that our time sometimes say 1 hour, 2 hours, that really doesn't make a difference, but it really does. You just quantified $1.6 million that you'd have to raise if it wasn't for the time that your volunteers give or your organization. How can someone who may be considering giving up their corporate job to pursue mission work or to work for a nonprofit, what kind of advice would you give to them?
Depending on sort of what age you are, whether you're in college or whether you're a mature adult, already have one good career under your belt. And so I'm very active with University of Central Florida. I still get invited back every semester to be a guest lecturer at the Rosen College of Hospitality Management. So I talk about my first career and how networking while you're in school and joining different associations and going out and just being brave and go outside of your comfort zone while you're still in school, how important that plays into your first job. And I also tell the students in Rosen College, look at me. I had a Rosen College degree, and here I am in a nonprofit executive position. And so just because you get this degree doesn't mean you have to stay with this degree, because life changes and your priority changes. And so that's mainly my two messaging to the Rosen College students. Just network and go out and make connections. And then also realize, just because you have this degree, it doesn't tie you or bound you to just working in hospitality industry, because every job you have build on the previous job, and you just take all little nuggets you learn along the way and just build your own skill set, what I call your toolbox. And you just put lots and lots of tools in your toolbox, and it'll help you to be successful in whatever job that you decide to transition into. And so I would say, if you're an adult and trying to think of a career change into nonprofit, either find a mentor that can guide you, or go back to school to get some academic accreditation or learn more knowledge. And along the way, identify someone who is willing to be your mentor and kind of guide you along. But you definitely would achieve a lot more if you have somebody else mentoring you rather than trying to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, networking and having those connections really makes such a big difference in when you're trying to change your career. Thank you for sharing that, Nina. How can people find out more about you? How can they connect with you and then also with the Sharing Center?
I would say go on our website, thesharingcenter.org, and there are lots of beautiful information about whether you're needing assistance. So you can click on the program side. If you need rent assistance, click on the rent assistant icon. If you want to learn more about what are the volunteer opportunities, click on the volunteer button. And all of our special events this year have been canceled because of COVID-19. So I think the events column might still have a couple of lunch and learn sessions. So we try to invite on a monthly basis different groups or individuals that just want to come for a tour and learn more about what the Christian Sharing Center does. And so those meetings, either breakfast or lunch meetings, are still on our website.
Perfect. Perfect, Nina. Well, Nina, I want to thank you for taking the time to share with us today, not only about the organization, the Sharing Center, but also about your personal story and your journey. I think it's an example of the wonderful paths that we can take and we can go on if we just take a moment to listen and follow our calling. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen. It's been such a pleasure talking to you again.
Thank you, Nina. Friends, individuals like Nina are the reason why I created this podcast. My takeaways from her story are two. Number one, sometimes even though on the outside we may have a pretty good life, there could be a hole in our heart, and it's our job to listen to the calling and fulfill our personal mission. It may not mean becoming a missionary like Nina did, but if it is, then you know it's not impossible and amazing things await for you. And number two, volunteers are critical to fulfilling the mission of nonprofit organizations. So if all you have is 1 or 2 hours a week to give back, you can rest assured that your contribution is very valuable. Thank you to our listener, Mayra Macias, who left us an amazing review on Apple Podcasts. Remember, ratings and reviews make a difference in the algorithm, and it helps others find our podcast so they can also be inspired. If you like this episode, don't forget to spread the love. Take a screenshot of your phone and share it with someone who you think would like to hear it. And don't forget to tag us on Instagram. Our handle is @StatementMakersPodcast. I hope you join me on our next episode. And remember, you already have everything you need to become a statement maker.